the road less traveled. The sun hung low behind the eastern pines, casting long shadows across the cracked highway. The sky was bruised purple, a storm threatening somewhere beyond the horizon. The van's engine droned steadily as it pushed forward on the lonely road, the wheels crunching over loose gravel and fallen leaves. Inside, the air was thick with a mix of excitement and unease. The four friends had wanted to stop at the local arcade, but decided to push forward to their destinations. The van parked in a lot of the arcade was dusty and covered in filth as if it had not seen a clean road in days. Jay, the driver, tapped his fingers rhythmically on the steering wheel, a crooked grin tugging at his lips. Man, I swear, this trip's going to be legendary. No parents breathing down our necks. Just us, the open road, and whatever weirdness we find. Beside him, Adam slouched back, eyes scanning the horizon with a quiet intensity. His hands rested lightly on his knees, fingers twitching as if ready to spring into action. You always say that. Mia, sitting in the back with her knees pulled up to her chest, frowned as she adjusted her hoodie. I'm just hoping for something real, something that makes me forget about everything else, even for a little while. These towns, they're all the same dull, empty. I want to see something that shakes me up. Lena, the quietest of the group, finally spoke from the far corner of the van. Her voice was calm, but carried an edge of excitement. What if we find something no one else knows about? Something they try to hide? That's what I'm after. Jay glanced back, flashing a grin that barely hid his nerves. Well, this rundown facility we spotted on the map looks like it's been abandoned for decades. Nothing on any site could be perfect for some urban exploration. The van crested a small hill, and through the dust-filtered sunlight, the teens caught their first full glimpse of the facility. It was a hulking structure of cracked concrete and rusted metal, nestled in the forest like a wounded beast. Tall, skeletal trees clawed at its broken windows. The fading sunlight made the jagged edges of the building's silhouette seem almost alive. Mia swallowed, voice dropping. That's it. You said, Jay. That's where we stop. The van slowed and pulled to the side of the road on a patch of dirt and gravel, dust floating in the air as they stopped. Silence fell, broken only by the distant call of a crow and the soft whistle of the wind through dead leaves. Jay switched off the engine, and the sudden quiet was almost deafening. They climbed out, stretching cramped limbs. The air smelled of damp earth and something metallic, faint and unplaceable. Adam's gaze lingered on the entrance, a heavy steel door hanging slightly ajar, as if inviting them in or daring them to come closer. A strange simile of a snake eating its tail marked the doors above it read, "The Ouroboros Collective Site 3 Archive Echo Seed Test Site." All right, Jay said, trying to sound casual, but failing. Let's check it out. Let's stick together, yeah? Said Adam. No solo runs. Lena nodded, pulling her jacket tighter. Be careful, she said. This place, it gives me the creeps. Mia's eyes never left the shadows spilling from inside the doorway. Whatever's in there, it's been waiting for use to find it. Jay pushed the door slowly. It creaked open, the sound echoing down the long, dark corridor beyond. Inside, stale air wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket, heavy with dust and the scent of decay. The flicker of Jay's flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing peeling paint, broken tiles, and faded posters emblazoned with an Ouroboros, a snake devouring its own tail, twisted into an infinity symbol. Looks like some kind of research facility, Mia whispered, stepping inside, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. Adam's fingers brushed against the cracked wall, tracing an unseen pattern. The Ouroboros Collective, he murmured. I've heard that name, Adam said, but I don't know from where. Lena was already rifling through scattered papers on a metal table, eyes wide behind her glasses. Check this out. Projects involving temporal manipulation, biological symbiosis, and advanced genetic engineering, classified, unauthorized personnel prohibited. Jake crouched near a filing cabinet, yanking open a battered drawer. Inside were folders marked with case numbers and dates, some recent, others decades old. Here, he said, pulling out a thick file labeled Case 7643, Claire Rivers. Mia leaned over to look. Prisoner, experimental subject, isolated from memory loop vectoring. Says here her memories reset in cycles, like a broken record. Jay's smile faded. Mind control, or worse. Lena held up another file. The Wolf Entity Protector Classification, unknown. Some kind of guardian, she read, voice trembling. Described as terrifying but protective. No name given. A sudden scrape echoed from deeper inside the building, sharp and metallic. They froze, hearts pounding. Jay's voice was low. Maybe we should head back. Mia swallowed hard but nodded. Yeah, but we haven't seen enough, Adam said. They backed toward the entrance. Adam, though, he saw a pair of glowing golden eyes looking at him, but he didn't mention it to anyone. The van door slammed behind them, the echo swallowed by the thick woods and heavy dust. No one spoke for a long moment. The metal case files clutched in their arms felt heavier than they should, as if the words inside carried weight beyond ink. Jay clicked his flashlight back on and looked at the hulking facility they had just exited. No way, we're done. We barely scratched the surface. Mia hesitated. You want to go back in? I want to know why there's a file in there with Claire Rivers' name on it. Adam, silent as always. Might as well finish what we started. And if anything attacks us, it'll beat them all up. They all just looked at Adam with side eyes for a moment before Jay hopped out of the van as everyone awkwardly followed after. They returned to the entrance. The steel door creaked louder this time, as if protesting their return. Inside, the air felt colder, deeper alive. They split up slightly, but stayed within shouting distance. Flashlights scanning rows of moldy shelves, toppled computers, and burned-out security monitors. Mia found a stack of tapes labeled with subject IDs and chilling phrases. Echo Seed Run Number 12, 7,643, recovered logs, Red Plague Sample 3A. She stared at the labels, heart thudding. This place wasn't just research, it was testing. Jay knelt beside a filing cabinet and forced open a rusted drawer. Inside were several folders sealed in plastic. One was marked, Subject Claire Rivers. Status merged. Anomaly detected. He read aloud. Test results indicate temporal bleed. Subject relives cycles due to resonance from Project Echo Seed's temporal rift experiments. Loop may originate with exposure to a being of unknown class. Subject merged with parasitic entity. Now presumed anomalous herself. Lena found another. Here's one on the Wolf. She paused, reading quietly. Described as Class X, anomalous guardian. Observed interfering in field operations. Not hostile to subjects unless provoked. Believed to retain fragments of human memory. Lena continued, says he protected a girl once. And tried to stop Claire shortly after she escaped. Who is this Claire Rivers? Adam backed away, slightly unsettled. Meanwhile, Mia found a final folder sealed with red wax. She pried it open. Inside, a single line was printed. Red Plague classifications are restricted to eyes only. Exposure warning. Pattern level mimetic hazard. Contact with samples will initiate systemic breakdown. Let's not open that, she muttered, as she put it back down. In the center of the room was a sealed hatch labeled Project Echo Seed, Time Modulation Chamber. Lena pressed her hand against the metal. They were messing with time, maybe creating alternate timeline. Claire, the Wolf. They're not from the same version of reality, I don't think. Jay looked around at the papers, the rusted tech, the maps on the wall. Guys, I think this whole place was meant to erase mistakes or hide them. But something escaped. Suddenly, they heard footsteps, real ones, coming down the main corridor. Everyone turned their lights toward the noise. A figure emerged, trench coat, tired eyes. Detective Ralston, I've been looking for those, he said, nodding to the files in Jay's hand. Jay handed them over, stunned. Who are you? Someone who's been chasing the truth. You kids just stepped into a nightmare that's been looping for a long time, and you might have helped me finally piece it together. The group watched him walk away, a silent gravity to every step. As they packed up and prepared to leave, Mia glanced at Adam. She saw he still had some files tucked under his arm. You need to give those up, Adam. That's way above our heads, Adam sighed before handing them over to Detective Ralston. He kept a small map tucked under his pocket, labeled Project Echo Seed Site B. Inside the facility, somewhere deep within the floorboards, a faint clicking could be heard. The Echo Seed. The detective stood alone in the hollow corridor of the Ouroboros facility. File. Shoulders tucked under one arm, flashlight in the other. The air smelled faintly of copper and ozone, as if electricity had once torn through the walls themselves. Dust swirled in the beam of his light. He had been here before in dreams, visions, maybe memories. He couldn't be sure anymore. He paused near the sealed chamber labeled Project Echo Seed, Time Modulation Chamber. The lock had been damaged. Someone had been here recently. He opened the folder the teens had handed him and leafed through pages that detailed incident reports, experimental logs, and redacted communications between scientists. One stood out, a message scrawled in red ink. The loops are no longer closing. The vector is compromised. Subject is unstable. Claire Rivers. He skimmed the attached file. Subject displays post-merge instability with symbiotic entity, capable of memory retention across temporal folds. Escaped after event Zeta. Current status, unknown. Another file covered the wolf. Entity physically monstrous, but displays protective behavior towards select individuals. Last observed outside Site V during Claire's breach. Origin, unknown. Possible connection to failed project Echo Seed Delta. He turned the page. A black and white photo of the wolf stared back at him, a hulking, twisted figure with impossibly long limbs and burning, red eyes. The note underneath read, alias, Adam, not hostile and less provoked. The detective exhaled slowly. I knew I wasn't chasing a monster. Something skittered nearby. He turned quickly. Nothing. The floor creaked. He pushed deeper into the lab complex. Behind cracked glass doors, the remains of workstations lay scattered, overturned monitors, open containers filled with dead organisms, torn paper files, then movement again. He spun around and saw her. Mia, the girl from earlier. She stood in a doorway with Adam, the quiet teen, watching him carefully. You left this behind, she said, handing him a final folder. He opened it, Project Echo Seed Delta. He read in silence. Objective, develop localized temporal fold system for strategic rewinds. Result, partial success. Side effects included temporal echoes, false memory injection, and identity fracturing. Secondary result, reality bleed through. Interdimensional phenomena observed. The next page mentioned a term he hadn't seen in years, the Red Plague, but the file ended there, no details, just a symbol in red ink and a date 2137. The Ouroboros again, this time partially burned. Where did you find this? He asked. Adam spoke, his voice calm but unsettling, very beneath the old archive wing. It wasn't meant to be found. The detective nodded. Then it's exactly what I need. Suddenly, a shriek echoed through the lower halls. A wet clicking followed it, rapid, rhythmic. Mia turned pale. What is that? The detective reached for his revolver. Stay behind me. From the shadows emerged a crawling horror, thin, almost skeletal, but its body was a writhing cluster of sharp, jointed limbs. Its face was a slick carapace, split down the middle, mandibles twitching, a brain spider. It lunged. He fired. The creature shrieked and collapsed, twitching, its form unraveling like yarn. They don't usually die that fast, said Detective Ralston, then suddenly. More clicking, more coming from down the hall. Run, he barked. They dashed through the corridor toward the central chamber. You shouldn't be here, said Detective Ralston as Adam slammed the door behind them, panting. Inside was a circular room lined with computer terminals and a central console that glowed with unfamiliar glyphs. Mia backed away. What is this place? Detective Ralston scanned the console. It's the original interface for the Echo Seed machine, the first one they built. I think it can fix this problem. A soft clatter echoed. A single brain spider crawled along the ceiling, unnoticed. It dropped silently behind Adam, then struck him in the eye, just for a moment, and then vanished. With the detectives' help, the group activated the Echo Seed machine in panic. Lights surged from the machine, and for a brief second, the world blinked. Then everything went silent. The sun was rising over the jagged ridge of the mountains as the teens and the detective stood outside the facility, breath visible in the cold morning air. The horrors of the night, the skittering of creatures, the shifting halls, the haunting files were already starting to feel unreal. "We made it," Mia whispered, half in disbelief. Adam stood beside her, pressing a bloodied rag to the fresh gash under his eye. It wasn't deep, but it would definitely leave a mark. The others, Tyler, Harper, and Juno, paced quietly around the overgrown lot, nervously eyeing the tree line. The detective zipped up his coat. "We didn't stop it yet, but we might have delayed it." Mia handed him the final batch of recovered documents, their edges still damp with mold. "You'll know what to do with these better than we would." He gave her a nod. "I'll make sure someone sees them, someone who can do more than I could." Tyler tossed the van keys to Adam. "Ready to bounce?" Adam winced as he caught them, one eye nearly swollen shut. "More than ready," he said, glancing back one last time at the ruined building half swallowed by the woods. "Dude," Harper said as they walked to the van, "that scar's gonna look badass, yeah," Juno added, like mysterious road-type vibes. "Total upgrade." Adam rolled his good eye. "Great, just what I needed, character development." The group piled into their rusted van, the engine coughed to life, and gravel scattered as they pulled away. Inside the vehicle, laughter returned, a nervous, exhausted kind of joy. Harper pulled out a battered guitar from back and strummed a few broken chords. Mia leaned her head against the window and stared at the treetops blurring past. "So is that real?" she asked aloud. "No idea," Adam muttered. "But we've got one hell of a story." They passed the same sign they had driven past when entering the town. The same faded letters, the same bullet holes, the same twisted trees nearby. Back at the facility, unseen beneath layers of concrete and soil, an ancient mechanism stirred. The Echo Seed core, now powered by new inputs, quietly began to power on. Somewhere, at some point in time, Claire opened her eyes in solitary confinement, the sound of a heavy door shutting behind her. Elsewhere, the wolf howled in a forgotten forest as his eyes met another's. Those golden eyes looked back at him silently. And far away, in a cheap motel room, a man named Dave Talone stared at the mirror. Something beneath his skin twitched and his skull itched. The van's tires hummed against asphalt. Tyler flicked on the radio. "Got any fighting games in next town?" Adam asked suddenly, cracking a smile despite the swelling. "Why?" Harper grinned. "You planning on beating the rest of us again?" Adam just looked ahead. As they were leaving the last part of town, Adam noticed their arcade was free now. "We're going to stop here for a bit, everyone," he said, pulling into the parking lot. None of them noticed the mark beneath his sleeve. None of them noticed the rusty van drive down the street past the arcade. A small, red Ouroboros burned into Adam's skin, appearing as if it had always been there. Epilogue Project Afterlife. Detective Ralston sat at a lonely diner counter in the middle of nowhere, the last remnants of his coffee growing cold beside him. A manila envelope sat on the table, stamped with the Ouroboros insignia and labeled in shaky handwriting. Project Afterlife. He had found it wedged in the back of a rusted locker beneath the Echo Seed machine, wrapped in black plastic. No mention of it had been in the digital logs. He opened the file and began to read, "Objective, extend cognitive continuity beyond physical death. Cross-reference with temporal feedback loops. Use Echo Seed data to map consciousness signatures. Estimated success probability, 17%, progress note 19. Subject A, Claire Rivers, showed potential compatibility due to entity symbiosis. Subject's temporal awareness may allow consciousness persistence beyond loop resets. Testing suspended following event Zeta. Progress note 31. Entity designated Adam displays recurring behavioral loops tied to host memory imprinting. Viable candidate for stability mapping. Final note. Do not attempt integration with Red Plague data. Project Afterlife is incompatible with biological corruption factors. Fatal cascade events observed in prior tests. See Incident Report Omega. Detective Ralston closed the file slowly. They weren't just experimenting with time. They were trying to cheat death, he whispered. Outside, a storm was building. Thunder rumbled across the flatlands. He folded the file and tucked it into his coat. The fight wasn't over. The monsters, the echoes of things that refused to die. They were all pieces of the same puzzle, and the next piece had just fallen into his lap. He stood, paid his bill, and walked out into the growing night. Behind him, a payphone rang once, then fell silent.